Hello, everybody. It's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to Book Reviews. So, this week, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norell. Jeez, okay. A novel by Susanna Clarke. Now, some things to note about this. This was Susanna Clarke's first novel. She wrote it over the period of like 9 years. Part of it was published in segments. It attracted a lot of attention. Neil Gaiman really kind of, really liked it. Things like that. So it's her first novel. Here's the thing I want to say right away though. Over 1,000 pages. It's over 1,000 pages. That's not a problem in and of itself. The problem is it could be 400. This story could be 400 pages. The pacing of this novel is atrocious. It is horrible. It's horrible. It's a really hard novel to get through. So I'm going to read you. One of the more exciting passages, but before that, I'm going to read you the opening. So, let's at the dawn of the 19th century, two very different magicians emerged to change England's history. In the year 1806, with the Napoleonic Wars raging on land and sea, most people believed magic to be long dead in England, until the reclusive Mr. Norell reveals his powers and becomes a celebrity overnight. Soon another practicing magician comes forth, the young, handsome, and daring Jonathan Strange. He becomes Norell's student, and they join forces in the war against France. But Strange is increasingly drawn to the wildest, most perilous forms of magic, straining his partnership with Norell and putting at risk everything else he holds dear. And then the thing from USA Today. What kind of magic can make an 800-page novel seem too short? Whatever it is, debut author Susanna Clarke is possessed by it. No, it doesn't seem short. It doesn't. At all. Not even a little. Not even a little. It doesn't even seem like it's 800 pages. It seems like it's over 1,000 pages. Like, I read War and Peace. This was longer than Crime and Punishment. This is like twice as long as Crime and Punishment, physically. But Crime and Punishment is a long novel. It's a hard novel to read. So, anyway, let me just tell you how, let's just go through, okay. Some years ago, there was in the city of York a society of magicians. They met upon the third Wednesday of every month, and read each other long, dull papers upon the history of English magic. They were gentlemen magicians, which is to say they had never harmed anyone by magic, nor ever done anyone the slightest good. In fact, to own the truth, not one of these magicians had ever cast the smallest spell, nor by magic caused one leaf to tremble upon a tree, made one mote of dust to alter its course, or changed a single hair upon anyone's head. But, with this one minor reservation, they enjoyed a reputation as some of the wisest and most magical gentlemen in Yorkshire. A great magician had said of his profession that its practitioners must pound and rack their brains to make the least learning go in, but quarreling always comes very naturally to them. And then there's a footnote. They're fake footnotes throughout this entire book, like it was written with research. And the York magicians had proved the truth of this for a number of years. In the autumn of 1806, they received an edition in a gentleman called John Sagudus. At the first meeting that he attended, Mr. Sagudus rose and addressed the society. He began by complimenting the gentlemen upon their distinguished history. He listed the many celebrated magicians and historians that had at one time or another belonged to the York Society. He hinted that it had been no small inducement to him in coming to York to know of the existence of such a society. Northern magicians, he reminded his audience, had always been better respected than southern ones. Mr. Sagudus said that he had studied magic for many years and knew the histories of all the great magicians of long ago. He read the new publications upon the subject and had even made a modest contribution to their number, but recently he had begun to wonder why the great feats of magic that he read about remained on the pages of his books and were no longer seen in the streets or written about in the newspapers. Mr. Sagudus wished to know, he said, why modern magicians were unable to work the magic they wrote about. In short, he wished to know why there was no more magic done in England. So, paragraphs go on like that. Where it's just, they just, and it's fine if that's what you're in for. You want to just sit back and just be like, what I really need is 7 paragraphs describing the society before people start talking. And there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of stuff's not going on. It's not. There's a lot of not even going on. So, yeah. It's rough. It's a rough book to read. It's super rough. So I had marked a place where there is a street performer magician in London, and Mr. Norell has moved there to become a celebrity, and he wants him gone. And his servant has kind of cornered him in this pub and is reading his fortune with tarot cards. Vinculus is the name of this street magician. Vinculus laughed when he saw it as though he recognized it. He gave the card 3 taps in friendly greeting. Perhaps it was this that made Childermas, that's the servant, less certain than he had been before. You have a message to deliver to someone, he said in an uncertain tone. Vinculus nodded. And will the next card show me this person, he asked. Yes. Ah! Exclaimed Vinculus and turned over the 6th card himself. The 6th card was the Cavalier de Baton, the Knight of Wands. A man in a broad-brimmed hat sat upon a horse of a pale color. The countryside through which he rode was indicated by a few rocks and tufts of grass at his horse's hooves. His clothes were well made and expensive looking, but for some inexplicable reason he was carrying a heavy club. Even to call it a club was to make it sound grander than it was. It was scarcely more than a thick branch torn from a tree or hedge. There were still twigs and leaves protruding from it. Like, that's a paragraph describing a tarot card, just so you know. Just bear with me. Vinculus picked up the card and studied it carefully. The 7th card was the 2 of Swords. Childermas said nothing, but immediately turned over the 8th card, Le Pendu, the Hanged Man. The 9th card was Le Monde, the World. It shewed a naked female figure dancing. In the 4 corners of the card were an angel, an eagle, a winged bull, and a winged lion, the symbols of the evangelists. You may expect a meeting, said Childermas, leading to an ordeal of some sort, perhaps even death. The cards do not say whether you survive or not, but whatever happens, this, he touched the last card, says that you will achieve your purpose. And do you know what I am now? Asked Vinculus. Not exactly, but I know more of you than I did. You see that I am not like the others, said Vinculus. There's nothing here that says you are anything more than a charlatan, said Childermas, and he began to collect his cards. Wait, said Vinculus, I will tell your fortune. Vinculus took the cards and laid out 9, then he turned them over one by one. 18, La Lune. 16, La Maison Dieu. Reversed. The 9 of Swords, Valet de Baton. The 10 of Batons reversed. Il la Papesse. 2, La Papesse. X, La Robe de Fortune. The 2 of Coins, the King of Cups. Vinculus looked at them. He picked up La Maison Dieu and examined it, but said nothing at all. Childermas laughed. You are right, Vinculus. You are not like the others. That is my life there on the table, but you cannot read it. You are a strange creature, the very reverse of all the magicians of the last centuries. They were full of learning, but had no talent. You have talent and no knowledge. You cannot profit by what you see. Vinculus scratched his long sallow cheek with his unclean fingernails. Childermas began again to gather up the cards, but once again Vinculus prevented him and indicated they should lay out the cards again. What? Asked Childermas in surprise. I have told you your fortune. You have failed to tell me mine. What more is there? I am going to tell his fortune. Whose? Norell's? But you will not understand it. Shuffle the cards, said Vinculus stubbornly. So Childermas shuffled the cards, and Vinculus took 9 and laid them out. Then he turned over the first card. 4. L'Empereur. Shewed a king seated upon a throne in the open air with all the customary kingly accoutrements of crown and scepter. Childermas leaned forward and examined it. What is it? Asked Vinculus. I do not seem to have copied this card very well. I never noticed before. The inking is badly done. The lines are thick and smudged, so that the emperor's hair and robe appear almost black, and someone has left a dirty thumbprint over the eagle. The emperor should be an older man than this. I've drawn a young man. Are you going to hazard an interpretation? No, said Vinculus, and and indicated by a contemptuous thrust of his chin that Childermash should turn the next card. 4. L'Empereur. There was a short silence. "That is not possible," said Childermash. "There are not 2 emperors in this pack. I know there are not." If anything, the king was younger and fiercer than before. His hair and robes were black, and the crown upon his head had become a thin band of pale metal. There was no trace of the thumbprint upon the card, but the great bird in the corner was now decidedly black, and it had cast off its eagle-like aspects and settled itself into a shape altogether more English. It had become a raven. Childermash turned over the 3rd card, 4. L'Empereur, and the 4th, 4. L'Empereur. By the 5th, the number and name of the card had disappeared, but the picture remained the same. A young, dark-haired king at whose feet strutted a great black bird. Childermash turned over each and every card. He even examined the remainder of the pack. But in his anxiety to see, he fumbled, and the cards somehow fell everywhere. Black kings crowded about Childermash, spinning in the cold gray air. Upon each card was the same figure, with the same pale, unforgiving gaze. Okay, that's actually pretty exciting. Now, that being said, that's one of 4 exciting moments in all 1,000 pages. Okay, so yeah. So Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I mean, it won awards for being a great first novel by an author. Clearly people I get why this book was to Neil Gaiman's taste, right? It's a very period novel. It's set in the Napoleonic Wars. It's far more questions than it is answers. It takes its time building the mood, but it takes too much time building a mood that is horrible. Like, it really spends a ton of time building a world that is just drab and dull and kind of hyper-realistic that way, but is that what, maybe you want that out of a fantasy novel, because this is a fantasy novel. If what you want out of a fantasy novel is a very dull, dreary, slow-paced version of England in the 19th century, well, you can have that. It's right here. I didn't want that particularly. I didn't like it. I really struggled. I struggled. I mean, the worse the book is, the harder I work to get through it, because I know that the next book probably won't be as bad. Man, did I just 150 pages a day of this book every day. Just, what am I doing today? Well, I have stuff to do, but I gotta get further into Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's not great. It's just not. It's just, no. I just didn't like it. It's 1,000 pages, and it feels like it's more than that. And I got lost in these long kind of descriptions of things that I didn't care about. And the characters are just dull and kind of, they're dull on purpose. That's the worst part about it, is that the characters are like super ordinary. Not extraordinary, they're ordinary to a super degree, because that's kind of the point. The point is the juxtaposition between this world without magic and these guys desperately trying to bring magic back into it, and their magic being spectacular by a no world of magic standards, but not all that great in general, like compared to the magic that they're kind of comparing themselves against. And okay, I guess if that's the thing you're doing, like Susanna Clarke does it very successfully, but I didn't find it engaging. Like, it was a thing that somebody did, but like, I want a story to have an energy that moves me through it. Right? It's like the narrative structure of a book should move you through it. It should start at the beginning, and it should like get you, and by the time you're at the middle, you should just be like, wow, there's all this things and stuff, and like, this really just didn't do that for me. It didn't hook me in with kind of the characters or the energy or the events. And like, that's a problem. And when I ask myself things like, okay, if a page at the end of this book would have just said, and then everybody dies, the end, would I have felt bad? Like, would I have been like, wow, what a cheat? I wouldn't have cared. I didn't care. I didn't care about these characters. I mean, not even like tiny bit. Just couldn't, like, it didn't. There was some sort of, like, I don't know, it wasn't an enjoyable read. Like, it may be an amazingly well crafted kind of period piece response, like like realism shattered by realistic magic, right? But it wasn't an engaging read. It wasn't a thing I really enjoyed reading. And I mean, for me, that's an issue. It's an issue that I didn't love reading the book, that I didn't look every day. I didn't go like, man, I'll put aside something that I kind of need to do because I really need to get further in this book. Right now, I'm in the middle of Hyperion, and I'll tell you, I'm going to spoil the review for Hyperion. The first 10 pages made me think I was going to hate it, and now I can't put it down. That's amazing. It's an amazing thing. I just really want to read it. I'd rather be reading Hyperion than doing this review about this book I didn't like right now, but I've got to get book reviews done. But, I mean, there's another book I could be reading that I'm actually enjoying, and I didn't enjoy this. I can't tell you to read this. I don't think you should read this. I mean, I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. I had to really struggle to get through it. When I got through it, I went, okay, well, good, that's done. Now I never have to do that again. By the way, this won the Hugo Award in 2005. I forgot to say that because I was so into, like, just trashing this book. So yeah, I didn't like it. There's nothing inherently that I can point to and say, like, oh, it doesn't make sense, or it's poorly, the characters are fine, they're just boring. The pacing is super slow on purpose. The writing is super detailed, but it's details that you don't feel you need. The things that are at stake are almost nothing. So there you go. That's it. It's a 1,000-page slow-paced story about nothing. So, good luck, I guess. Like I said, I didn't like it. Other people did. It won some awards and stuff. It won a Hugo Award. Yeah. And by the way, Time Magazine said this is a masterpiece of the genre that rivals Tolkien. No, how dare they invoke the name? So, I didn't like this. I'm panning it. I could have read 2 good novels. Or 3 good short novels in the time it took me to read this. So with that, that's my review of this. When we come back, something interesting. I'll see you for that. Bye, everybody.